Before we begin, take a moment to get comfortable. Let your arms go heavy, your breath slow. And as you listen, feel free to leave a comment sharing what time it is, where you are, and what city or village you're listening from. It's love to know. And if you'd like more quiet stories like this one, don't forget to subscribe so they gently appear when you need them most. Now, let's begin. You are standing still, or so it seems. The floor beneath you is quiet. The soil rests. The pavement doesn't tremble. The trees do not lean with any urgency. And yet, the ground under your body is not truly still. It drifts slowly, subtly, almost invisibly, a movement so slow you would need a lifetime or many lifetimes to notice. You are being carried, always, without ever lifting a foot. The Earth's crust, this solid shell of rock and memory, floats atop a sea of hotter, denser rock called the mantle. Not like a boat on water, but like cracked ice on a thick soup, each piece moving in its own time, with its own story. These great fragments are called tectonic plates, and they are the continents beneath your life. Africa, Asia, the Americas, Antarctica, Australia. They are not fixed points on a map. They are travelers, pilgrims of stone. Millions of years ago, they were closer. Some were even fused, touching like joined palms. You could peel back the oceans and flatten the world like a jigsaw puzzle. The pieces would fit. This is no accident. This is tectonics, the great, slow dance of continents. It's not a dance of grace or symmetry, but one of patience. The plates move about as fast as your fingernails grow, just a few centimeters a year. But across the eons, this adds up to thousands of miles. Whole continents cross the globe, rearranging the world like a slow breath in and out. You walk across ancient collisions, a cup at a mountain, and you may be gazing at a scar, the uplifted edge of two plates meeting. Stand by the sea, and the smooth sand beneath your toes may once have been mountain rock, ground down over millions of years by the grinding of plates, carried by rivers, dropped into oceans. The continents, remember, even if we do not, their names are not just geography, but echoes of movement. The Himalayas are still rising, pushed upward by the slow embrace of India and Asia. The Atlantic Ocean is widening as the Americas drift away from Europe and Africa. Iceland grows as magma wells up from the mid-Atlantic ridge, a wound in the Earth's crust that bleeds new land. All this happens far too slowly for your senses to notice. You feel still, but you are riding a raft of rock across a molten. See, if you could wait long enough, 100 million years or so, you'd see the continents reunite in new configurations. Oceans would shrink and disappear. Mountains would rise where plains now stretch. Islands would sink. Volcanoes would bloom like flowers and then crumble back into ashdot. The world, you know, is not permanent. It is choreography. Sometimes the plates move apart and the earth opens. Magma rises and forms new crust, birthing oceans, pushing apart what was once whole. Other times, they drift toward one another, colliding softly or fiercely, crumpling and folding the land into mountains. And then, in some places, one plate slides beneath another, pulled into the Earth's mantle to melt and become something new. This, too, is the dance. A rhythm of separation and union, of emergence and retreat. None of it is hurried. Nothing in plate tectonics happens fast. Even earthquakes, the sudden jerks we feel, are only the final exhale of decades, centuries, even millennia of built-up strain. You live on the crust, but the life beneath it is deeper. The plates are not just rock, they are memory in motion. Fossils embedded in one continent match those found thousands of miles away, not because life jumped the ocean, but because the continents were once one. The earth remembers its own body. Think of the land like a song so slow. You can't hear the notes unless you stretch your ears across time. The beat is the movement of rock. The melody is the rise of mountains, the fall of seas. The silence is not the absence of sound, it is the pause between the drifting. Every mountain range you've ever seen began with this slow, invisible choreography. Every ocean trench is a result of one plate surrendering beneath another. Every coast is a line drawn not just by water, but by tectonics, the earth folding, cracking, drifting, and you. You are a passenger on this endless drift. You may never feel the movement directly, but it cradles you. It built the land you walk on, shaped the hills outside your window. It carved a basin that holds your favorite sea. Every grain of sand began as something larger, part of a cliff, part of a mountain, part of a plate, ground down by time, by the movement of continents beneath wind and weather. At night, when all is still, the earth continues its motion. While you sleep, the ground shifts, not in drama, not in fear, but in continuity. This is how the planet breathes. So the next time you sit quietly, place your palm on the ground. Let it rest there for a moment. Feel nothing, and know that, even in stillness, there is movement. Not all motion rushes. Not all change must be seen to be real. The earth teaches you patience. It teaches you persistence. It teaches you that even the most solid things can drift and still hold you steady. And this slow dance is not without direction. The continents are always seeking, always pulled, not by destiny, but by heat, by density, by gravity's quiet hand. Stand on a world that turns and tilts and slides, not in chaos, but in a graceful geological ballet. The continents will meet again one day. A new supercontinent will form, far in the future. The ocean, might vanish. New ones will rise, forests will shift, climates will transform, but the rhythm beneath will remain. You are not just alive in the world, you are alive with it. And as you breathe in again, slowly, calmly, you begin to sense the quiet edges of this movement, not just beneath you, but within you. Because where the earth begins to crack, something deeper stirs, something hidden beneath the stillness. Your world is stitched together by fractures deep, invisible seams, called faults. Here, the earth's breath is sharp, sometimes trembling with tension, sometimes whispering with silence. Cracks are not just wounds, but passages, lines where the earth grows and sheds what lies in the stillness between each tremor. You walk through a world stitched together by invisible lines, not the lines of maps or nations, not the lines of roads or fences, but deeper ones, ancient, hidden beneath the surface, running like quiet lightning through stone. These are faults, lines, places where the earth is opened, slipped, cracked, and remembered. At first glance, the land appears whole, continuous, solid, but it is not. Beneath your feet, the crust is split, its pieces outlined by tension, like a painting stretched tight over a frame of heat and pressure. In those cracks, the places where plates meet or part are not flaws. They are the earth's breath, its release valves. Seams of becoming. Stand long enough on any ground and you are bound to be standing on a fracture. Some of these breaks are so small they barely whisper. Others span continents, like the San Andreas Fault in California or the North Anatolian Fault in Turkey. Deep scars that shift the land like the slow grind of teeth. These cracks don't scream. Not always. Most of the time, they wait. Stress builds quietly, invisibly, year after year. Two pieces of the earth press against one another, refusing to yield. The pressure grows. Rock bends. Time collects tension like water behind a dam. But then, when the resistance can hold no longer, the land moves. Not in a wave, not in a drift, but in a snap. A sudden rearrangement. This is an earthquake, but let us not rush to the rupture. Let us stay, for now, in the stillness. In the time before the break, there is something profound in that quiet. You are standing in it every day. The space between tremors, the silence between the Earth's exhalations. And in that space, the world is preparing. Slowly, invisibly, it is shaping the next moment of release. Fault lines do not just divide, they shape. They carve valleys, raise mountains, redirect rivers. They make the planet uneven, yes, but also alive. They remind us that the Earth is not static. It is responsive, reactive, deeply expressive in its slow, grinding language. There are many kinds of faults, each speaking in their own dialect of motion. Some faults slide past each other horizontally, a sideward sigh, like the San Andreas. Others pull apart, letting magma well up from below, rifts that widen the Earth's skin, like the East African rift. And some press into one another, one side heaving upward, the other slipping down. Thrust faults that lift mountain ranges and shake the land with every inch of Kepha. Vertical defiance. Each type is a sentence in the Earth's long story of tension and release. And each break, each fracture is not destruction. It is dialogue. The plates are not at war. They are in conversation. Even in their silence, these cracks affect you. They shape the hills you drive across, the coasts where you walk, the cliffs where wind sings and birds nest. In cities built atop faults, entire lives unfold with invisible fractures beneath them. Generations are born, grow, and pass, all while the land holds its breath, and sometimes it releases that breath all at once. When an earthquake strikes, it is not an act of violence. It is a reset, a long-held strain giving way to balance. Imagine pulling a rubber band slowly, slowly, slowly until it snaps. The release is sudden, but the cause was years in the making. The shaking of the ground, the trembling of walls, the falling of stones, they are the result of this ancient dance. The Earth is not punishing, is recalibrating, and yet these moments feel terrifying. We're not wired for sudden groundlessness. We trust the floor beneath us to be still. So when it moves, even slightly, it triggers something deep. A loss of orientation. A reminder that we are guests upon a shifting world. But within the quake is wisdom. It teaches impermanence. It teaches readiness. It teaches that even what seems solid is, in truth, fluid. Not like water, but like time. It's constant, slow, but capable of change. Sometimes these fault lines aren't just underground. They rise to the surface, visible in jagged ridges, torn roads, offset streams. Nature reveals the path of its own memory. You can trace the split with your hand, feel the line where the Earth no longer aligns perfectly. And you realize, even stone can move, even land can change. Faults are also creative spaces. Where plates diverge, they create space for a new crust, birthing land from magma. Where they converge, they uplift old rock into new mountains, exposing minerals once buried in darkness. Where they slip past each other, they shear the land into unexpected forms, coping new canyons and basins. Without faults, the Earth would be too still, it's too quiet to even, but it is not. It breathes through its breaks. It remakes itself through rupture, and sometimes it sings. There are places in the world where fault lines speak through more than just earthquakes. They hiss with gas, bubble with hot springs, steam with volcanic heat. These are places of transformation where the Earth is close to the surface. It's whispering through warmth. You can sit by such a spring and feel it. The Earth isn't just below, it is present, alive, murmuring through heat and minerals, offering reminders of its restless heart. Fault lines also guide human stories. These civilizations have risen and fallen along them. Cities cluster near faults, not because we seek danger, but because those cracks often provide fertile soil, fresh water, and rich minerals. And sometimes, in seeking life, we settle in places that tremble. In these places, people learn to live with motion. They build with flexibility. They prepare without panic. They become fluent in the Earth's rhythms. even its sudden pauses. And what of you? You carry your own fault lines, not geological, perhaps, but emotional, mental, invisible seams where pressure builds, where memories don't quite align, where something deep within you waits for release. You, too, are shaped by tension, by holding back, by enduring, by being still longer than you want to be. Until one day, something shifts, not destructively, but necessarily. Like the earth, you move, you change, you adjust, and like the earth, your cracks are not flaws. They are evidence of life, of movement, of survival. So tonight, as you lay your body down on the ground, whether on a bed, a floor, or a patch of earth, take a moment to imagine the fractures beneath you. It's deep, ancient, patient, holding tension, releasing it, forming the land you live upon. And remember, the world you inhabit is not perfect, not smooth, not still. It is cracked, okay? And those cracks are how it breathes. Let that thought carry you into rest. Let it remind you that stillness is not the absence of motion. It is the moment between movements, and just below those cracks, something rises, something born not of destruction, but of creation. Imagine the ocean floor being born not from water, but from molten fire below. At mid-ocean ridges, Earth's crust splits open and magma rises like a glowing tide. Here, the seabed is always young, always forming a secret factory hidden beneath the waves. What other worlds are built in darkness? There are places on Earth where fire gives birth to water, not the kind of fire you can see from land, or the kind that scorches the skin. This fire is buried, hidden deep beneath the seafloor, and it does not rage. It glows, it pulses, it builds. You cannot hear it, you cannot feel it, but far below the surface of the ocean, where light does not reach and pressure crushes like stone, a quiet miracle unfolds. The earth opens, and from that opening, new crust is born. This is the mid-ocean ridge, a seam that snakes across the ocean floor like a glowing scar, stretching for over 40,000 miles. It is the longest mountain range on Earth, and most of it lies submerged, veiled by miles of salt water. If you could drain the oceans like a basin, this ridge would rise before you, tall, jagged, and alive with heat. Here, the Earth's crust is thin. Here, the plates diverge, and in their parting, magma rises. Molten rock, hot and heavy, wells up from the mantle, finds the crack, the void, the space between the separating plates, and it fills it. Slowly, deliberately, it cools, hardens. It becomes new seafloor. This process is called seafloor spreading. It is not a violent event. It is slow, like everything in tectonics. Centimeter by centimeter, year after year, the ocean floor is created in silence. New rock emerges, pushes the older crust outward, and in doing so, shapes the very face of the planet. Imagine standing on that ridge, if it were possible. There is no sky above you, only water pressing down with the weight of mountains. Around you, vents release hot, mineral-laden water, forming tall chimneys called black smokers. The water here is superheated, sometimes over 400 degrees Celsius, but it does not boil. The pressure is too great. It hisses, it gushes, it flows like breath to the throat of the earth. And around these vents, life exists. Not life as you know it, not fueled by sunlight, not photosynthesis, not green leaves reaching skyward. No, this is geosynthesis. Bacteria feed on chemicals from the vent water, hydrogen sulfide, iron, methane, and form the base of a strange, deep sea food web. Tube worms, clams, shrimp, and creatures, still unnamed, gather around this undersea fire. Thriving in the dark, they do not need the sun. They need the earth's breath. They live on its fire. This is the paradox. In the coldest, darkest places on the planet, warmth and life emerge from within. The ocean floor, born of fire, becomes a cradle for the most alien life on Earth, and it keeps growing. The Atlantic Ocean, quote, is widening each year, pushed outward by the mid-Atlantic ridge. As the plates on either side of the ridge move apart, the Eurasian plate to the east, the North American plate to the west, new ocean floor is created in between, a silent conveyor belt powered by the deep engine of the mantle. This ridge, this underwater factory, does not rest. It does not pause. For millions of years, it has built the ocean from the inside out. And in doing so, it has carried continents away from each other, reshaped coastlines, opened new worlds. The crust nearest the ridge is young, fresh, just solidified, but move outward, away from the ridge, and the crust grows older. 10 million years, 100 million, 200 million. The farther you go, the more ancient the stone, till, at the edges of the ocean, the crust sinks once again into the mantle in the quiet cycle of subduction. But that is a story for another time. Tonight, you are standing, metaphorically, gently, at the site of Earth's deepest construction. And it is not just geology. It is rhythm, a slow inhale and exhale of fire and rock, a heartbeat that pulses beneath the deepest waters. You are floating on a world that builds from its center, not its surface. And just as the Earth spreads its crust across the ocean floor, so too does it spread memory. Samples of rock taken from the seafloor near these ridges show symmetrical patterns of magnetism, stripes alternating in polarity, normal, reversed, normal, again. They tell a story of Earth's magnetic field flipping over time, of polarity changes locked into cooling lava-like signatures frozen in stone. These magnetic bands mirror each other on either side of the ridge, proof that new crust is born at Newt, crust is born at me. The center and pushed outward. The ocean, it turns out, holds a fossil record of the Earth's magnetic moods. But even more than memory, the mid-ocean ridge holds possibility. For in that darkness, in that warmth, in that slow formation of rock, we see the blueprint of planetary renewal. No matter how much old crust is pulled away or destroyed as subduction zones, new crust will always rise. The Earth replenishes itself, not by repairing the old, but by creating the new. And this is not limited to Earth alone. Elsewhere in the universe, we search for signs of tectonic activity. Planets and moons with moving plates, volcanic heat, and internal energy may also host the conditions for life, even without sunlight. If life can form around black smokers in the pitch black of our own oceans, then perhaps it can emerge on Europa beneath its icy shell, or on Enceladus, where geysers spout from a hidden sea dot. This idea that fire can feed life in darkness is a profound one. It tells us that warmth does not always come from above, that life can begin in pressure, in heat, in hidden places we do not yet understand, and that oceans themselves are not always born of water. Sometimes they are born of fire. So next time you stand on a beach or look out across the sea, remember this: what you see is only the surface, beneath the waves. The Earth is growing. The ocean is not a void. It is a story, a memory, a breath. The waves you hear tonight, the ones that hush you to sleep, are cradled by a crust that formed in fire. And that fire still glows, deep in the Earth's heart. It is working, even now, quietly, patiently, shaping the future with every inch of seafloor it lays down. And just beyond this ridge, in the silence of rising rock, a new chapter begins. One where mountains rise not in fire, but in stillness, slowly, slowly, slowly. Mountains aren't born with noise. They rise in silence, inch by inch. Your breath mirrors their pace, slow and steady, as continents press into one another. Rock becomes sky, and time sculpts the spine of the earth. What stories sleep inside their folds? The air is still. The horizon is jagged. You stand before a mountain, or maybe you only imagine it, gently now, as you lie still. It towers, quiet and unmoving, a shape that has always been there, it seems, as if it was born complete, carved from the sky itself. But mountains are not sudden things. They do not roar into being. They do not appear overnight. They rise slowly, far too slowly for the human eye to see, and their story is written not in moments, but in epochs. It is the story of resistance, of two plates pressing together, of stubbornness, of yield, and of patience so fast it wears down stone. To feel the story of a mountain, you must slow your thoughts. Let them stretch long across time. Inhale gently. Hold it. Exhale. And now, picture two pieces of the earth, enormous slabs of crust, meeting not as enemies, but as immovable travelers. They press into one another, neither willing to sink. And so, the only way forward is up. This is how mountains are born, where tectonic plates collide, and neither one subducts. The crust crumples, layers of rock fold and thicken, heat and pressure push them skyward. It begins so faintly, a ridge, a rise, a bulge in the land. Then, with each passing millennium, the peak rose, an inch, another inch, a foot, a mile. Stillness, again. You cannot feel this motion, not in your lifetime. But the earth keeps shaping, always. The Himalayas are the highest mountains on earth, and they are still growing, formed by the collision of the Indian plate and the Eurasian plate. They began their rise around 50 million years ago, and they climb still a few millimeters each year. It's not fast, but unceasing. Imagine that, a wall of stone taller than the clouds, still reaching higher, while you sleep, while you live, while rivers cut their paths below. The mountain is not finished, and neither is the earth, but not all mountains are so sharp, so young. Some are older, worn down by wind and water. The Appalachians in North America, for instance, were once as tall as the Himalayas, but time has softened them. Rain has polished their faces. Trees now grow on their backs, and fog settles like breath in their folds. They are no less grand for their age, only quieter, more inward. Every mountain holds the memory of pressure, a meeting of crust, a refusal to break, but it also holds the memory of erosion, of being worn away. So a mountain is not just a monument of resistance. It is a collaboration between rise and fall, between force and surrender. And still, they grow in places where the crust folds. You find what geologists call fold mountains. These are layers of sedimentary rock, once laid down flat, now bent and pushed into arches and troughs. The Alps, the Rockies, the Andes, they all began this way. Seabeds lifted skyward, fossils of marine creatures found at the tops of peaks, prove that mountains were once submerged, that even the highest places were once steep. You carry this image with you now, the bones of sea creatures locked in rock, thousands of meters above the ocean, sky and the seafloor trading places, a reminder that everything moves, that nothing stays where it began. But mountains are not only created by folding. Sometimes the crust fractures instead of bending. Enormous blocks of rock tilt and lift along fault lines, creating block mountains, where one piece rises while the other drops. The Sierra Nevada in California is one such range. A tilted plate of granite pushed up by faulting, its steep side falling toward the desert, its gentle slope stretching toward the coast. Other mountains form from volcanic activity, fireborne rather than pressure-shaped. But those are different stories. Tonight, we stay with the slow mountains. It's the ones formed not from fire, but from embrace. And this slow rise changes everything around it. Mountains redirect the wind. They shape climate. Rain falls on one side, leaving the other dry. They form rivers, carving valleys as snow melts and rushes down. They provide refuge for unique plants and animals, high places where evolution writes. Quiet side stories. Mountains are more than stone. They are scaffolds for life. And they are teachers. They teach slowness. They teach that rising is not always fast or loud. Sometimes it is inch by inch, quiet, patient, unseen. You too may feel pressure in your life, the slow meeting of forces, expectations, memory, fear, hope. Some of these forces you can't move, but like a mountain, you can rise. You may not see it happening. You may not feel it day to day. But with time, the shape of your life changes. You grow upward. You build a new height from old layers. You rise, not in a burst, but in a becoming. And there is strength in that, because a mountain does not rise easily. But once it does, it lasts. It holds snow. It captures stars. It watches the sky change, unmoved by hurry. You live on a planet, sculpted by slow conflict, not war, but movement. Encounter the gentle collision of continents, the building of peaks from pressure. Even when the plates stop moving for a while, when the pressure rests, the mountain remains, still watching, silent, but look closer, and you see that even the silence is full of change. Plants root in, cracks, water trickles down and freezes at night. Crystals grow inside rock, creatures scurry across the surface. All things changing, all things alive. You may never climb the Himalayas, may never walk the Andes or the Alps, but they are. In you, their story is your story, a slow unfolding, a quiet, deliberate shape. And even now, as you lie still, something inside you lives, some old pressure, some deep fault, pressing upward, asking not to be broken, but to be shaped. You are more mountain than you know, so when you breathe next, slowly, slowly, picture that breath rising through layers, through ancient rock, through buried memory, through sediment and time, and let that breath settle at the summit, clear, cold open. Then let it fall again, like snow melting into rivers, feeding the world below. And know this, where mountains rise, the earth remembers its deepest collisions, its most stubborn encounters, and from those encounters, it makes something lasting. But beneath those mountains, deep below the stone, the warmth still stirs, a slow, silent flow, thick and steady, moving countenance from within, ... Far below, in the mantle's warmth, solid rock flows like thickened honey. You cannot see it, but you feel its pull, shaping coastlines, moving continents. It hums with heat, with pressure, with deep intention. Can you hear the earth's ancient heartbeat? The ground beneath your feet feels solid. It holds your weight without complaint. It receives each step with silence. It sleeps under cities and forests, under oceans and mountains, a patient platform for life to unfold. And yet, this stillness is an illusion, a soft deception of time and scale, because far beneath you, the earth flows, not like a river, ticked, not like the tide, but with a slowness so profound, it challenges your definition of motion, a movement so dense, so thick, so patient, it is more like thought than liquid. It is the mantle, that vast layer between the crust above and the core below, and it is alive with quiet force. The mantle makes up most of the Earth's volume. You rarely hear its name outside textbooks, yet it is the great engine of all. Tectonic movement. It is where heat is stored, where pressure builds, where energy travels upward to shape the face of the world. And though it is made of rock-heavy, dense, compressed rock, it moves, not freely, not quickly, but it moves. You might imagine it as stone frozen in place. But heat changes everything. Even solid rock, under enough pressure and temperature, can soften, bend, flow. Not like water, but like molasses, chilled in winter, still firm, but not entirely still. That is how the mantle behaves. And from this slow circulation comes everything. This process is called mantle convection, a gentle churning cycle of hot material rising and cooler material sinking. It is driven by the heat left over from Earth's formation and by the radioactive decay of elements deep inside. This heat escapes slowly, radiating upward, moving the mantle in great looping currents. Like steam in a pot, the hottest parts rise. They push upward against the crust, thinning it, stretching it. In some places, this creates rifts, places where continents begin to split. In other places, it forms volcanic hotspots, plumes of magma that pierce the crust and build islands, one eruption at a time. The cooler material, having given up its heat, sinks once more into the depths, and the cycle begins again. This movement of the mantle is not fast, a few centimeters each year, perhaps, but over millions of years, it reshapes the world, moves continents like rafts across a simmering sea. It pulls oceans open, folds land into mountains. It drags crust downward into the deep earth, where it melts and begins again. It is the slowest breath you've ever known, but without it, the earth would be still, lifeless, cold. Imagine this: you are floating above the planet, looking down not at cities or forests or waves, but at the skin of the earth itself, and beneath that, at the mantle's swirling glow. You would see loops and currents of semi-solid rock, red and orange, moving like thought beneath the surface. You would see continents drifting on top of this restless mass, unaware of the heat below, and you would understand what seems solid is never truly still. The mantle moves the plates move the crust moves the surface moves you. It is all connected. Even the volcanoes, even the earthquakes, they are surface echoes of this deeper rhythm. When the mantle rises in narrow columns, it thins the crust, opening space for lava to pour out. High, when two plates grind past each other or press together, it is because the mantle has pulled them there. Nothing happens without the push and pull of that deep flow. Some scientists believe that mantle plumes, narrow rising columns of hot rock, are responsible for certain volcanic chains, like the Hawaiian Islands. Each island in the chain marks a point where the plume broke through the crust, releasing lava that cooled into land. But the plate above is moving, and so the hotspot creates a trail, a dotted line of volcanic peaks, each one younger than the last. This, too, is the work of the mantle. Even continental rifting, the slow splitting of a landmass, begins with the mantle, where hot rock pushes upward. It domes the crust, stretches it, thins it until it cracks. This is happening now in East Africa, in the Great Rift Valley, where the continent is beginning to split apart. Someday, millions of years from now, a new ocean may fill the space where land once joined. And deep beneath all this, the mantle keeps moving. It does not tire. It does not rest. It simply flows, always carrying heat from the center of the earth toward the surface, shaping the planet in long, slow waves. You do not feel it directly, but you live by it. Your mountains rise because of it. Your oceans exist because of it. Even your weather, the shape of continents, the arrangement of seas, the rise and fall of land, is influenced by the quiet churn of the mantle. It is the Earth's bloodstream, and, like a bloodstream, it carries more than heat. It carries memory. Rocks that were once on the surface, subducted at plate boundaries, are pulled into the mantle. Some melt, some change form, some return to the surface in volcanic eruptions, transformed. And in this way, the mantle recycles the crust. It is not just a mover, but a maker. And what does this mean for you? It means you are part of a system that moves too slowly for eyes, too powerfully for imagination. A system that does not rush, but reshapes the world 1 millimeter at a time. It teaches you that transformation doesn't need speed, that change can happen beneath the surface, unseen and celebrated, but no less real. That what flows in. Silence may still hold power, okay? That you, too, have currents within you, slow, warm, patient, that shape the outer landscapes of your life. The mantle reminds you to trust time, to trust that movement is happening, even when all seems still. To believe that warmth exists beneath the hardened surface, not lost, but waiting, cressing upward, becoming so. Lie back now and picture the ground beneath you, not just the floor, or the dirt, or the rock, but deeper. A layer of dense, dry, glowing rock that moves like thought. A slow, circular dance, the earth's own inner tide. And as you drift toward sleep, let yourself drift with it. Not quickly, not urgently, but with weight and purpose and quiet direction. Because beneath the crust, beneath the mountains, beneath the oceans and faults and ridges, the earth flows on, and far above, where the plates ride its surface, sometimes the pressure builds until the crust breaks open and the world trembles. Earthquakes are the body's sudden exhale after long-held tension. The ground jerks awake, reminding you that even stone can break. Yet, within the rupture, balance is restored, old energy released into new stillness. What does the earth release? When it sighs, stillness can be deceptive. You lie down, perhaps on a quiet hillside or in the comfort of your room, and feel the steadiness of the ground beneath you. Feels unchanging, reliable, firm, where that firmness is an illusion built on time. For even the most ancient stone holds tension. It stretches and twists and bends under forces far deeper than you can see. And sometimes, when the pressure becomes too much, the earth lets go. This is an earthquake, but it doesn't begin with a bang. It begins with silence, with friction, with the long buildup of force between two pieces of the earth's crust, plates that do not want to move, but must. They press together, they lock, they hold, and for years, decades, even centuries, they stay that way, storing strain like breath in a tightened chest, until finally, one side slips. It takes just a moment, and in that moment, what was still becomes motion. What was firm becomes fluid. The ground beneath you, the surface you trust with your body, your steps, your shelter moves. It shifts, jumps, rolls. The illusion of stillness breaks, but let us slow that motion and look deeper. Earthquakes are not explosions. Air releases a fault. A crack in the crust slips suddenly, sending seismic energy outward in waves. These waves ripple through rock like ripples on a pond, bending and bouncing, shaking and settling. The movement may last seconds or minutes. The damage may be invisible or immense, but the earth, afterward, is changed. Geologists call the point where the slip begins to focus deep underground. The point on the surface directly above it is the epicenter, where the shaking is strongest. From that origin, the energy fans outward in all directions. The waves roll through the crust like sound through a drum. There are fast, sharp waves, P waves, compressing and expanding the rock like a slinky. And there are slower, side-to-side waves, S waves, more destructive, more persistent. And then, finally, come the surface waves, slower still, but more chaotic. These waves cause the ground to ripple, buildings to sway, and the world to feel suddenly uncertain. They are what people remember: the rolling sensation, the rattling windows, the stillness turning into sea. But all this is just the earth letting go, because when tectonic plates build stress at their edges, when faults resist movement, energy accumulates. The earth holds that energy tightly, silently, and then, when the strain is too great, the earth slips. It's like a muscle cramping and then relaxing. The release is abrupt, but the preparation took centuries, and in that release, balance is restored. The fault settles into a new position. The plates adjust, the tension resets for now. Some places on Earth experience this often. Places near tectonic boundaries, like Japan, Chile, Indonesia, or California, live with the memory of motion. These regions sit near active faults, where plates converge, diverge, or slide past each other. The San Andreas Fault, for example, marks the boundary between the Pacific and North American plates, a line that shifts often, reshaping the landscape with each breath in these places. Earthquakes are not surprises. They are part of the rhythm of the land. Structures are built to bend, not break. People practice drills. They learn to listen to the quiet, to feel the first small shudders. But earthquakes also come where you least expect, because faults can hide. Stress can build beneath silent ground. And the earth remembers where we forget. Ancient rifts reawaken. Buried scars shift again. Even regions thought to be geologically calm can tremble. Given enough time, you may wonder, why doesn't the earth release tension slowly, evenly? It tries. In some places, the plates move in small, constant slips, what geologists call a seismic creep. These are movements so gradual, they produce no quakes, no sudden release. But not all faults allow this. Some hold too tightly. The rocks catch. They grip. So the energy waits and waits until the inevitable snap. It's not. Unlike your own life, you hold things in sometimes. Stress, worry, memories. Carry them quietly, perhaps for years, until one day, a moment, a word, a glance, and something slips. The tension releases. A shudder, a sigh, a crack in the stillness. And then something shifts within you. This is what the earth feels. It is not angry. It is not cruel. It is simply alive. In the same way you might cry after holding too much, the earth trembles. Then it steadies again, and it keeps moving. In the aftermath of an earthquake, the world often feels uncertain. Aftershocks may follow, smaller quakes that readjust the stress around the fault. These can last for days, even weeks, like echoes, like the body twitching after the exhale. But each one helps settle the crust into its new position. Eventually, quiet returns, and in that quiet, something new begins. Sometimes, the quake lifts the land. A field becomes a hill. A river bends. A coastline rises. The 2011 earthquake in Japan moved the entire island of Honshu by more than 2 meters. The 2004 quake in the Indian Ocean shifted the seabed and triggered a tsunami that crossed entire oceans. The earth moves, and the world responds, but not all consequences are visible. Some cracks are emotional, psychological. Whole communities live with the memory of a shaking. It came without warning. They rebuild. They carry on. But deep down, they know the ground beneath them is not fixed. And this knowledge changes the way they see the world. It humbles, and it teaches. It teaches that permanence is a story we tell ourselves. That strength is not found in rigidity, but in adaptation, in preparation, in the quiet ability to bend, to absorb, to release without breaking. Some people who survive earthquakes speak of a strange calm that follows, a stillness sharper than silence, as if the world has paused, as if the earth has sighed and now waits. This moment, just after the shaking, sacred. It is filled with clarity. You remember what matters. You listen more closely to the ground and to yourself, and you begin again, because earthquakes, like all things in a tectonic story, are part of a cycle. The ground breaks, not as punishment, but as process. It shifts to find balance, and in doing so, it reminds us that no system can hold tension forever, not even the earth. So what can you learn from this? That pressure is not something to fear. It is something to respect, to watch, to understand. And when the time comes to release, let go, shift, settle into a new shape, and know that even if things crack, even if they fall apart, the stillness that follows is full of possibility. The earth always rebuilds. You can too, and somewhere, beneath the broken ground, something ancient still moves, still flows. A fault resets, and deep in the mantle, the heat continues to rise, to rise. Long before you took your first step, before your ancestors carved paths through valleys and forests, before names were given to places and borders were drawn across maps, the world was one, not one in spirit, but in stone, a single landmass, vast and silent, resting like a cradle upon the surface of the earth. This was Pangaea, the great supercontinent, a name meaning all earth, and it was exactly that, a unified world where mountains stretched across what are now different countries and rivers flowed without passports or flags. It is hard to imagine. Today, the earth feels scattered, continents adrift like islands in a great ocean. But the land beneath your feet, wherever you are, was once stitched to other lands. Your soil was once closer to someone else's sky, and the ground you call home carries the faint memory of long-lost neighbors. Pangaea formed around 335 million years ago, and earlier continents, themselves born of collisions and separations, slowly drifted together, drawn by the ancient choreography of plate tectonics. Africa, South America, North America, Europe, Asia, Australia, and Antarctica, all once part of a single, enormous body. But this unification was not peace. It was pressure. As the continents pressed together, mountains were born. Appalachians in North America, the Atlas Mountains in North Africa, the Urals in Russia. These ranges formed where plates collided, quiet witnesses to a time when the land held itself close, and surrounding Pangaea was a vast global ocean, Panthalassa, a single expanse of water embracing the land like a sleeping tide. There were no familiar coastlines then, no bays or peninsulas shaped like home, just a single edge curving gently around the continent's mass. But nothing on earth stays still. Even unity is temporary. Around 175 million years ago, a tangent began to break. The mantle below whispered change, a slow rise in heat, a swelling, a stretch. Cracks formed, rift valleys deepened. The land began to part. First, into two major pieces, Laurasia in the north, Gondwana in the south. And from there, further fragmenting, shifting, drifting. You might picture the continents as ships leaving a quiet harbor, sailing slowly across the molten sea of the mantle. The voyage was not fast. It took millions of years, but the pieces moved away from one another, away from their shared past. And now they rest where you know them. Africa here, South America there, Australia floating like a forgotten thought in the Southern Ocean. North America anchored above, Eurasia sprawling, Antarctica spinning in cold solitude, all shaped by that ancient divorce. You can still see the fit if you look closely. The eastern edge of South America curves gently into the western edge of Africa, like puzzle pieces that remember being together. Fossils of the same ancient reptiles, like Mesosaurus, are found on both sides of the Atlantic. Creatures that could not have swum such vast oceans, but once walked the same land. Mountain ranges that once formed as one are now split across continents. Rocks of matching age, composition, and structure are found thousands of miles apart, echoing a unity long lost. Even the glacial scratches, marks left by ancient ice sheets, point in directions that only make sense if the continents were once joined. The earth remembers, even if we forget. And though Pangaea is gone, its influence remains. In the shape of continents, in the roots of ocean currents, in the evolution of species, once able to migrate freely, now separated by seas, the very breath of the planet. Sometimes it's comforting to think of the continents as distant relatives. They once lived in the same house, shared the same kitchen, of ecosystems, the same bedrock and climate. And though they've moved far apart, they still carry traces of that early closeness. The plants and animals on different continents often share surprising similarities. The baobab tree grows in both Africa and Australia, Marsupials thrived across Gondwana before splitting into their present-day homes. Humans, too, carry in their bones the marks of ancient migrations, of paths carved when land bridges still stood above sea level. Even our myths reflect this longing. Flood stories, earth-dividing legends, dreams of once unified lands echo across cultures, as if some deep ancestral memory recalls a time when the world was simpler. But Pangaia's story is not one of nostalgia. It is a chapter in a longer book, because supercontinents come and go. Before Pangaea, there were others: Rodinia, Columbia, Kennerland. Each formed, broke apart, and reformed again over billions of years in a cycle called the supercontinent cycle. This rhythm plays out over hundreds of millions of years. It is not a single event, but a recurring pulse, like the inhale and exhale of planetary breath. And so, one day, long from now, the continents we know will come together again. They are still moving, carried by the convection of the mantle, nudged by the heat within. North America may collide with Asia. Africa may slide northward, closing the Mediterranean. The Pacific Ocean may shrink, the Atlantic widen, perhaps the opposite. Scientists have even named this possible future union Pangaea Proxima, or Next Pangaea, a supercontinent yet to be born, invisible but inevitable. It is strange, isn't it, to realize the ground beneath you is not permanent, that the maps you know are moments, not facts, that the world is not fixed, but flowing slowly. Yes, but surely, and you are part of that flow. You live on a fragment of memory, carried by a planet that never stops rearranging itself. This knowledge can be unsettling, but it can also be freeing, because if the world itself is allowed to break, to drift, to change shape, so are you. Separation is not the end of a story. It is part of transformation. Continents drift, yes, but they also become risks in their separation. New coastlines form, new climates, new ecosystems, new ideas. The Atlantic Ocean was once just a rift. Now it is a pulse that drives the Earth's weather. So perhaps there is beauty in division, in distance, in the long, slow process of becoming something new. Still, the pieces, remember, they lean ever so slightly toward each other in the quiet curves of coastlines, in the matching stones across oceans, in the fossils that speak the same language. You walk on ground that once stood beside another. And deep in the mantle, the earth remembers the path. It is all movement. It is all return. Even separation carries within it the possibility of reunion. So breathe now. Let that thought settle. The ground beneath you, this very moment, is drifting slowly, silently, and somewhere across the world. A distant shore remembers your shape, because what broke apart once may one day come together again. And far beneath these drifting pieces, in the dark, a surrender begins. The earth does not waste. Even its brokenness is recycled. Even its heaviest losses are drawn inward and transformed. Tonight, as you lie quietly, imagine the world beneath you, not the surface, but the deeper places where one slab of the planet, tired from its journey, begins to bend. It doesn't fight. It falls, and slowly it sinks. This is subduction, the act of one tectonic plate descending beneath another. A gesture that might seem like defeat, one edge being swallowed whole, but it is not defeat. It is a return. A slow, deliberate yielding, like a wave slipping beneath the next, like breath dissolving into the lungs. At certain edges of the world, the crust is not created, it is consumed. These are the subduction zones where oceanic plates, older, colder, heavier, slide beneath lighter, continental, or younger, oceanic plates. You can find these quiet ceremonies encircling the Pacific in the Ring of Fire, where the earth both opens and closes, breathes in and breathes out. It begins at the margins, far out at sea, The ocean floor ages as it spreads away from the mid-ocean ridges. As it cools, it becomes denser, and eventually, like a weary traveler, it is pulled downward into the mantle at the subduction trench, a deep, curving groove on the ocean floor. You can picture it now, okay? One massive plate meeting another, their edges touching, not like hands, but like the gentle overlap of waves. The heavier plate bends downward into the trench and slowly disappears from the surface world. This descent is not violent. It is slow, centimeters per year, like a heartbeat stretched across a calendar of millennia. But over time, it creates deep ocean trenches, the deepest places on Earth. The Mariana Trench, for example, where the Pacific Plate slides beneath the Mariana Plate, reaches nearly 11 kilometers into the Earth, deeper than Everest is tall. And what happens to the plate as it descends? It heats, it compresses, it transforms. At these great depths, the temperature rises. Water, trapped within this subducting rock, is released into the overlying mantle. This infusion of water lowers the melting point of the rock above, causing it to partially melt. Magma forms. And that magma, lighter than the solid rock around it, begins to rise. This is how volcanoes are born, not from rage, but from renewal, subduction. Zones are among the most volcanic places on Earth. Where one plate sinks, fire rises. The Andes, the Cascades, the Japanese archipelago, all are sculpted by this quiet exchange. Plate descends, magma ascends, one gives way, and another is made. And this is the hidden poetry of the planet. The crust that is swallowed is not gone. It becomes something new, perhaps an eruption years from now, perhaps a mountain range, perhaps a tiny grain of mineral in a new rock lifted high above the sea. This cycle is slow but certain. The ocean floor is not eternal. It is born at the ridges and dies at the trenches, over and over again, a conveyor belt of time, and without subduction, the Earth would choke on its own growth. New crust is created constantly at mid-ocean ridges. None were destroyed. The planet's surface would stretch endlessly, its skin bloating with the new rock. But it doesn't, because what is created must also be surrendered. Subduction restores balance, and that balance makes life possible. The rising magma formed in subduction zones brings more than fire. It brings elements: water, carbon, volatile gases. These are essential ingredients for life. Without subduction, these materials would be locked deep within the planet. But because the crust sinks and melts and rises again, these elements are cycled from Earth to atmosphere to life and back again. Even continents owe their shape to subduction. Where oceanic plates sink beneath continental ones, the overriding edge is compressed and uplifted. The pressure folds and thickens the crust, building mountains. This is how the Andes came to rise along South America's western spine. A slow upward echo of the plate sinking below. Subduction also shakes the Earth as the descending plate sticks and slips against the overriding one. Stress accumulates, and when that stress is released, earthquakes occur, sometimes shallow and subtle, other times deep and devastating. These are not random acts. They are part of the negotiation between plates, a language of adjustment, off give and take. And sometimes, when enough stress releases, the sea itself is stirred. Subduction zones are responsible for many of the world's tsunamis. When a large earthquake lifts the seafloor, a surge of water is sent across the ocean, a wave with no warning, shaped by the invisible rearrangement of the Earth's body. But we must be careful not to think of these moments as acts of violence. They are the side effects of transformation, because every broken edge, every bent slab, every molten plume, it all feeds the system of renewal. You might imagine subduction as the Earth eating itself, but perhaps it's more accurate to think of it as the Earth breathing in, drawing the old back down to its molten center, not to end it, but to reforge it. The plate that subducts today becomes part of tomorrow's eruption, tomorrow's hill, tomorrow's soil. And so, where does that leave you? You live upon the results of this process. It's the mountains you see, the islands you visit, the volcanic soils that grow your food, all of them shaped by this act of surrender. Even the air you breathe carries a trace of subduction. Volcanic gases released into the sky. Long ago, carbon, water, vapor, nitrogen slowly formed the early atmosphere. You were made possible by the Earth's ability to change itself. And if you let the metaphor reach deeper still, you might feel it in your own life. What have you held for too long? What pressure have you built? What weight do you carry? What layer within you is ready to be released? Sometimes it is not in holding firm that we grow, but in letting go, in sliding downward, gently into the depths of ourselves, in melting old forms and becoming something new. Subduction is not weakness. It is wisdom. To give way is not to disappear. It is to feed the fire that builds new land. So tonight, as you breathe, imagine this. Below your body, perhaps hundreds of kilometers down, a slab of oceanic crust is bending beneath the edge of a continent. It has traveled for hundreds of millions of years. It is old, it is tired, and now it returns to the source. Its minerals change, its water escapes, its form softens, and in time, it rises again, not as itself, but as something new. You may never see this, you may never feel it, but you live because of it. And as you drift into sleep, the earth continues its long, slow surrender. And at the edges of the sinking plate, a ring begins to glow, fierce, fertile, trembling with fire, with fire. Draw a line around the Pacific Ocean, not with ink, not with string, but with motion. It is not a perfect circle, nor a smooth curve. It is jagged, uneven, trembling. A boundary line of unrest, a scene where the earth pulses, reshapes, and speaks in fire. This is the ring of fire, not a myth, though it sounds like one, not a legend, though it burns like one. It is a real and restless boundary, stretching over 40,000 kilometers, circling the vast Pacific like a glowing crown. From the southern tip of Chile, up through North America, across to Alaska, down the coast of Japan, through the Philippines, Indonesia, and into the depths of New Zealand. This is where the earth does not rest, and yet it is also where life is born. The ring of fire is a loop of tectonic boundaries, mostly subduction zones, where one plate dives beneath another. Here, the earth's crust melts and rises again in fire. The result is a chain of volcanoes, deep-sea trenches, mountain ranges, and earthquakes that mark the edge of the Pacific plate. If you could fly high above the planet and strip away the clouds, you'd see it clearly, a ribbon of volcanoes dotting the coastlines like embers glowing on the edge of a black seed. It is not a ring of destruction. It is a ring of transformation. Over 75% of the world's active volcanoes are found here. Thousands of them, some sleeping, some simmering, some erupting with the force of centuries. And beneath them, the plates move constantly, colliding, sliding, grinding, swallowing, and releasing. The Pacific plate is vast, the largest of all tectonic plates, and it is surrounded on nearly every side by subduction zones. This is rare. Most plates are bordered by a mix of boundaries, divergent here, transformed there. The Pacific is ringed by descent, like a great stone ship, slowly sinking along its edges. And from those edges, magma rises, volcanoes form. Some grow on land like Mount St. Helens, Fuji, and Pinatubo. Others rise beneath the ocean, building up over time until they break the surface, becoming islands. This is how archipelagos are born, one eruption at a time. Take Japan, a volcanic island arc, built along the line where the Pacific plate subducts beneath the Eurasian plate, or the Aleutians in Alaska, or the islands of Tonga and Vanuatu. Each landform in this vast ring is a monument to the pressure below, and where there are volcanoes, there are earthquakes. The ring of fire is not just hot, it is trembling. The plates do not move smoothly. Stick, they resist, they build, strain, and when the strain is too great, they slip. The result is a quake. It's times mild, sometimes catastrophic. The Arling Iyi Tohoku earthquake in Japan, a magnitude 9.0, was born here. So was the 1960 Valdivia earthquake in Chile, the most powerful ever recorded. And so too were countless other quakes, most never felt, but each reshaping the world a fraction at a time. But to see the ring of fire only as a threat is to miss its quiet miracle. It is also fertile, volcanic ash, though dangerous in the moment, feeds the soil. Fields near volcanoes are lush, rich in minerals. Crops flourish, forests thrive. Even the coral reefs surrounding volcanic islands teem with life. Their roots in stone and magma. The ring of fire is a contradiction. It destroys, but it nourishes it. Erupts, but it also cradles. The very forces that level villages also build the land they stand on. The heat that melts the crust also gives rise to the islands that support life. The fault lines are not scars. They are seams, places where the world is stitched together with fire and water. And this rhythm of eruption, collapse, rebirth, is not just geological, it is musical. There's a pulse to it. It's not regular, not metronomic, but patterned, cycle. Scientists study these patterns to understand the timing of eruptions and quakes. They watch the gases rising from craters, the swell of magma beneath the ground, the tremors that echo like whispers before a shout, because the ring of fire speaks through its volcanoes, loud and sudden. It speaks through its earthquakes, sharp and brief, speaks through its islands, growing quietly in the dark, and it speaks through its trenches, the deepest parts of the ocean, where the crust disappears into the mantle. These trenches are among the most mysterious places on Earth. In the Mariana Trench, Challenger Deep is over 10,900 meters below sea level, deeper than any mountain is tall. Down there, the pressure is immense, the temperature near freezing, the light absent, and yet life exists. Creatures adapted to pressure and darkness drift through that silent water. They are reminders that the Earth's most extreme edges still hold softness, that even in a ring of fire, there are places of quiet. So what does it mean to live near the edge? Many do. Over 800 million people live along the ring of fire. Cities rise in its shadow. Cultures bloom beside its volcanoes. Entire civilizations have flourished and fallen within its trembling embrace. They build knowing the risk. They rebuild when the ground breaks. They plant in ash, fish near the reefs, and sleep beneath mountains that may one day stir again. They live not in spite of the fire, but because of it. And you, even if you live far from the ring, are connected to it. The tectonic movement here affects global patterns. Earthquakes along its edge can trigger tsunamis that travel across oceans. Volcanic eruptions can release ash into the atmosphere, cooling global temperatures for years. The ring of fire is not isolated. It's the hinge of the world. You feel it in weather. You see it in maps. You hear it in the stories of those who live near its heart. And perhaps you feel it in yourself. That edge, that tension, that rhythm of pressure and release. You, too, are made of borders, fault lines, visible or hidden. Places where different parts of your life meet, past and present, hope and memory. Sometimes those boundaries shake, tease. Sometimes something breaks. But often, in those moments, something new forms. A realization, a letting go, a beginning. The ring of fire reminds you that even the most unstable edges can be fertile. That fire, properly channeled, builds as much as it destroys. That transformation often begins where things feel most uncertain. So lie back now and listen. Not with your ears, but with your imagination. Feel the deep, pulsing line that rings the Pacific. Feel the heat rising from subduction zones, the slow swelling of magma. Feel the islands growing in darkness, the ground shifting beneath oceans, the quiet trembling of a world that is always becoming. The ring of fire is not a border, it is a path, and on that path, something old is always making way for something new, because all along the Earth's edges, the crust is broken, not by accident, but by design, and what breaks becomes the beginning of something else. As the plates grind forward, inch by inch, they leave behind no waste, only possibility. The land is never lost, it is remade, and deep below, the quiet fire continues to feed the world above. Look around you, the floor, the walls, the trees outside. Everything rests on something ancient, something used, something that has been broken and reformed, melted and reborn, folded and uplifted across eons. The earth does not throw anything away, even what seems gone. Sunken ocean floor, shattered rock, vanished volcano is not lost. It is returned, recycled, brought back into the system that never stops moving, never stops transforming. And this recycling begins beneath your feet. The surface of the earth, its crust, is not permanent. It is more like clothing worn by the planet, taken on and off over millions of years. Old ocean crust is constantly being drawn into the earth as subduction zones. It sinks into the mantle, pulled by gravity and guided by slow tectonic breath. But this isn't an end. It's a beginning, because once it sinks, the crust changes. It heats, it melts, it mixes with surrounding rock. Its minerals shift under pressure. And in time, maybe millions of years later, it finds its way back to the surface, not as the same crust, but as magma, as volcanic rock, as rising land, as the foundations of new geography. This is not waste. This is wisdom. The earth doesn't discard. It remakes. You can see this cycle in the rocks themselves, in a granite cliff face. You might find tiny crystals formed in cooling magma. That magma might have come from the melted floor of an ancient ocean. In the folds of a mountain, you might see lines of sediment, once sand at the bottom of a sea, now hardened, lifted, and exposed to the air. Rocks carry memory, and their stories are written in transformation. There are three primary kinds of rock: igneous, sedimentary, and metamorphic, and all of them are part of this planetary recycling loop. Igneous rocks are born from fire. When magma cools, either deep underground or on the surface after a volcanic eruption, it solidifies into new crust. Basalt, granite, obsidian, all of these begin in the molten chambers below the surface. They are the newborns of Earth's recycling system, but they don't stay unchanged. Weather, wind, water, all begin to wear them down. Over centuries, these forces grind rock into smaller pieces, pebbles, grains, dust. These bits are carried by rivers, dropped into lakes and oceans, layered slowly over time. And as they build up, layer upon layer, pressure fuses them into sedimentary rock. Sandstone, shale, limestone, rocks. K, made of old rocks, compressed memory. But even this is not the final form. As tectonic plates shift, these sedimentary layers may be buried deep within the Earth's crust. There, heat and pressure alter their structure without fully melting them. They change shape, their minerals realign. They become metamorphic rocks, transformed, not destroyed. Marble, slate, schist, stone, that remembers what it once was, and also what it became. And if the pressure continues, if the heat grows stronger, these rocks melt completely. They return to magma, and the cycle begins again. From igneous to sedimentary to metamorphic to molten, over and over. A geological wheel, always turning. You are walking on it. You are living within it. Even the mountains you see in the distance, they are part of this loop. Some began as seabeds, others as lava flows. all of them shaped, reshaped, and shaped again. The Himalayas hold rocks that were once on the ocean floor. The Alps contain layers of shell-rich limestone that were once soft seabed mud, and the continents themselves, built from fragments of older crust, bits of island arcs, volcanic plateaus, microcontinents, all welded together across time. Nothing is wasted. Even the tectonic plates are temporary. They are born at mid-ocean ridges, where magma rises and solidifies. They travel across the surface of the earth, carrying continents, dragging oceans, and eventually they sink back into the mantle as subduction zones. Each plate is part of the journey, okay? None are the destination. And in this endless loop of transformation, the earth remains whole, because this is not destruction. It's renewal. It's easy as a human being to think of recycling as a modern invention, something invented to manage waste. But the planet has been doing it for billions of years, quietly, in layers, in loops, in cycles of erosion, burial, melting, and birth. And from this, we can learn. The earth does not hold on to its past forever. It wears it briefly, then folds it inward to make something new. It lets go of what no longer fits. It transforms without fear. You, too, are allowed to change, to become something else, to be reshaped by time, by pressure, by experience. And when old parts of you sink away, dreams, beliefs, habits, it does not mean they are wasted. It means they are becoming something else. There is no shame in being remade. The crust does it. The mountains do it. The earth does it. So why shouldn't you? And the beauty is, you don't even have to hurry. The earth's recycling happens on a slow, patient clock, millions of years. Nothing is rushed. Nothing is forced. If it takes time for rock to become dust, and dust to become stone again, then perhaps you, too, can allow yourself the grace of slow transformation. You do not have to rise immediately after a fall. You do not have to be the same person today that you were yesterday. You are allowed to subduct, to melt, to rise again slowly as something new. And you are allowed to carry memories, even as you change, because the earth does. Within each new layer is a fragment of the old. Within each stone is a story, written in heat, in pressure, in time. And as you breathe in and feel the stillness of the night settle over you, remember this: beneath you, the earth is reshaping itself, not in bursts, but in whispers, not in endings, but in returns, not in chaos, but in pattern. The crust is not wasted. It is invited home and far below, where melted rock stirs and rises. A quiet clock ticks on, not in hours or days, but in the rhythm of drifting plates and folded stone. And above it all, you rest, floating on a world that never throws anything away, a world that carries its past with care, builds its future from fragments. And somewhere at the edge of an ancient plate, the crust begins to shift again. We measure time in seconds, minutes, hours, little boxes to hold the passing of our lives. A day feels long. A year feels momentous. A decade can change everything. But beneath your feet, time moves differently. The plates of the earth, those massive slabs of rock you sleep above, walk across, and build your life upon, measure time, not in days, but in distance. And not even fast distance, just millimeters per year, an inch or two, maybe, slower than your fingernails grow. And yet, in that slow, steady crawl, entire continents are rearranged. It feels impossible. How can something so vast, so world-changing, move so little, so quietly? But that is the mystery of tectonic time. It is not the speed that matters, it's the persistence. A tectonic plate does not rush. It does not pause to question. It does not stop to look back. It simply moves, year after year, guided by the flow of the mantle, the pull of gravity, and the push and pull of all the other plates pressing around it. And in that patient, ceaseless motion, the world is shaped. Mountains rise, not overnight, but over millions of years. Valleys deepen, oceans widen, volcanoes grow and collapse. The floor beneath your house is not the same floor it was 100 million years ago. It may have drifted thousands of kilometers. It may have been part of a different continent, even a different hemisphere. You live on a traveler, and though its journey is slow, it is constant. This is the clock of the earth, a clock that does not tick, it grinds, and in that grinding, all things are carved. The Himalayas, for example, rise about 5 millimeters per year. That's half a centimeter. That's nothing to you, the width of a fingernail. But over a million years, that adds up to 5 kilometers. Mountain range, a new skyline, and the Atlantic Ocean. It's getting wider by about 2.5 centimeters a year. It's not much. You wouldn't notice it standing on the shore, but given time. That widening has pushed Europe and the Americas apart by thousands of kilometers since they split from Pangea. Tectonic time is vast. It does not care for human calendars. Empires rise and fall before a single plate moves more than a few feet. Cities are built and buried while a mountain adds just a few meters to its height. Our history is a blink to the earth, but that blink happens on the crust, and the crust remembers. The rocks below carry the evidence in layers, in faults, in faults, in falters. The patterns are subtle, but they speak. They whisper of ancient deserts once buried beneath oceans, of forests fossilized in stone, of coastlines now stranded high in the mountains. Geologists studied these patterns to understand the timing. They read the rock like a diary, not day by day, but page by page. Each page a few million years apart. And what they find is that everything, every continent, every sea, every mountain was made not by dramatic bursts, but by slow, rhythmic effort. That is the secret of tectonic time. It doesn't need to hurry because it never stops. There is something humbling in that. You live your life in motion, rushed, sometimes pressured. You worry if you haven't moved far enough, fast enough. But the earth reminds you that some of the most powerful transformations are barely visible. That pace and progress are not the same thing. Tectonic change is quiet. Tectonic change is invisible. Tectonic change is unstoppable. And over time, it builds everything, even the shape of your continent. Its outline on the map is drawn by this patient hand. The coastlines follow ancient fault lines. The mountains trace old collisions. The soil beneath your crops was brought there by the rise and fall of terrain. The ground itself is a story not of speed, but of endurance, and it continues, even now. Each year, the plates shift. Some grow closer, others drift apart. Abduction. Zones pull old crust into the mantle. Mined ocean ridges create new seafloor. Transform faults let plates slide past each other with barely a sound. And the result? Continents move. They rotate. They change shape. Some will disappear, consumed by the mantle. Others will merge. A new supercontinent may form, not tomorrow, not next year, but in the distant future. Perhaps Pangaea, Proxima, or Emasia, or Novopangaea, each a vision of a world to come, and long after today's mountains have crumbled. Long after today's oceans have changed course, the earth will still be moving, the plates will still be drifting, and new land will rise from the quiet. This is what it means to live on tectonic time, not to rush, but to continue to move. Even when no one sees it, to change shape so slowly that only deep memory can measure it. And if you feel small in that truth, let yourself be small. There is a kind of peace in knowing you are part of something so vast. You are a moment, yes, but you are also a witness to a planet in motion, to a world that does not fear change, because change is all it knows, and you too, are allowed to change. Not all at once, not with drama, but slowly, like a plate shifting beneath the ocean, like a continent drifting, like a stone being worn smooth over time. You can change its direction. You can build new landscapes. You can carve mountains from memory, cave valleys from silence, because movement doesn't have to be loud to be real. And sometimes the most powerful motion is the one that happens quietly, without applause. So rest now. Let the world be still around you, and feel beneath that stillness the slow turn of time, the long pulse of tectonic breath, the earth's steady hand at work. A plate moves, a ridge rises, a future takes shape, and far away at the edges of the earth, life gathers where change is sharpest. It's quiet now, the kind of quiet that settles deep into your breath. But beneath that quiet, remember, the earth is always moving. And where those movements meet, where plates converge or part, there is something else that stirs. Life edges are often thought of as endings, but the earth doesn't believe that. Edges are beginnings. Down in the dark places where tectonic plates pull apart the rift zones, the mid-ocean ridges, molten rock rises from below, forming new crust. But it's not just rock that forms in these hidden seams. It's life, too, emerges. Imagine it. You are 2 miles below the ocean surface. There is no sunlight, no warmth from above. It's endless, dark, and crushing cold. And yet, in this harshest of places, something flickers out there along the mid-ocean ridges, where the Earth's crust is tearing apart. Hydrothermal vents spew out scalding water rich with minerals. To us, it would be a hostile place. Boiling heat mixing with icy ocean. Poisonous chemicals. No light to nourish plants. And yet, here, life thrives. Giant tube worms, white and red, like something imagined in a dream, stand tall without eyes or mouths. Blind shrimp swarm across vent chimneys, their bodies glowing faintly. Bacteria flourish in the heated flows, feeding not on sunlight, but on sulfur, on heat, on chemistry. This is geosynthesis, a way of making life where photosynthesis cannot survive. And it all begins at the edges. These life forms have evolved, not in stability, but in motion. They are born in places that could collapse, shift, or erupt at any moment. And somehow they flourish because edges, tectonic or otherwise, are places of invitation, not comfort, but possibility. Look at land-based fault zones, and you'll find the same truth. The San Andreas Fault, the East African Rift. These aren't just scars in the crust. They are cradles of biodiversity. The shifting land breaks open new soil, creates cracks for water to run. Kina elevates hills that catch different winds and builds microclimates from uneven terrain. Species adapt. Plants that never would have mingled begin to coexist. Animals evolve in response to new temperatures, altitudes, and habitats. Over time, edges become ecosystems. The Earth is telling you something here. It's not only in balance that life grows, but in the moment right before balance is found, in the tension, in the tremor, in the edge. Think of the birds that nest in cliffs, their feathers buffeted by wind. Think of seeds that sprout in the crevice of a lava flow, warmed from below, reaching toward uncertain sky. Think of human beings living along the rims of volcanoes, fault lines, shifting lands, not because it is easy, but because life is always looking for a place to begin. You live at the mercy of tectonics. More than you realize, the soil beneath your crops may have come from volcanic ash long ago. The mountain spring where your water begins may have risen from uplifted stone. Even the valley where your town was founded might once have been shaped by a rift, a sag, a fold, a broken seam in the crust. Edges are not always gentle. They do not promise safety when they offer creation. And when you look at the world through the lens of tectonics, you start to see the poetry in the push and pull of plates. You see how volcanoes, while dangerous, bring nutrients from the deep earth to the surface. How earthquakes, while sudden, relieve tension that could otherwise destroy. How mountains, though formed by collision, cradle whole forests in their folds. Edges are where life must adapt or die. But that adaptation, that resilience, is what defines life. Even in your own body, you've known the edge. Moments of fracture, moments of shift. Moments where something inside you felt like it was being pulled apart, and yet something new came from it. New habits, new beliefs, new ways of being you, to evolve at the fault lines of your life. The earth does not fear its own breaking. It uses those moments to grow. It is the same in every tectonic boundary. Where two plates diverge, new ocean floor is born. Where they collide, mountains rise. Where they slide past each other, landscapes are reshaped. Even subduction, the act of one plate sinking beneath another, is not destruction. It is transformation. It is fire becoming land. It is crust returning home to become part of something new. And around each of these zones, life pulses. Coral reefs fringe volcanic islands born from submarine eruptions. Fertile plains stretch from the feet of mountains formed by continental clash. Even geysers, steaming, bubbling signs of heat beneath, provide warmth to species in cold, barren places. The earth builds life on its fault lines, and so can you. Where are your own tectonic boundaries? Where do parts of you rub together, rough and unresolved? Where do you feel the tension of movement? Where you pull between the old and the new? These are not places to be feared. They are places of potential. You may not see the change yet, but if you stay with it, if you remain in that uncomfortable edge, you may find that something begins to grow, slowly, quietly, like a tube worm in the dark, like a fern on a mountain slope, like a thought blooming at midnight, because the earth reminds you, instability is not always danger. It is the invitation to evolve. Edges are honest, okay? They tell you where the pressure is real. They do not hide. They crack open, okay? And in that cracking, there is space for air, for water, for life. You may have been taught to avoid the edge, to seek only solid ground, but the most fertile places are often just beyond the fracture line. The soft soil after the landslide, the first green after the lava cools, the song of the vent in the darkest deep. So breathe now and rest in the knowing that not all movement must be feared. Some motion is creative, some instability is fruitful, and some edges are where the best parts of you begin. The earth is not finished, and neither are you. Even now, somewhere beneath the ocean, a new vent opens. Somewhere on a ridge, a new crack forms. Somewhere in the shadow of a fault, a flower grows sideways into the sun. And somewhere in your mind, a question stirs, something gentle, quiet, unresolved. What else might the earth be hiding beneath its surface? The light in your room is dim now. Perhaps the curtains are drawn. The world has quieted. And in this stillness, something deeper begins to unfold, not above, but far below. While you settle into your pillow and breathe the softness of night, the earth, too, begins its dreaming. But unlike you, it never truly sleeps. Beneath your bed, your street, your city, the crust of the earth glides slowly across a molten sea. You are carried without knowing, rocked without noticing. The continents don't shout their movement. They whisper it in inches per year. In silent heaves of stone, the earth dreams in pressure. It dreams in temperature. It dreams in time, too vast for any clock to capture, as you drift between thoughts and unconscious stories. The planet drifts beneath you, not aimlessly, peace, but with purpose woven through pressure and molten flow. Tonight, your dreams rest atop a vast engine of creation. It is strange to think that what feels still the ground, the mountains, the land you trust, is in fact a moving story, a story with chapters older than memory, and characters shaped from fire, water, air, fate, and patience. Close your eyes for a moment. Picture the earth not as a hard ball, but as a layered symphony. The outer shell, rigid, thin, cool. That's the crust, like a skin. Neath that, the mantle, warm and slow and thick, like honey left in the sun. Then deeper, the outer core, a swirling ocean of molten metal. And at the center, the inner core, solid again, beating like the quiet heart of a sleeping animal. You live on the skin. But the story moves through every layer, and that movement, it never stops. Even in your deepest sleep, the mantle flows. Even while you dream of nothing, the plates drift and collide. Earthquakes pulse through ocean beds. Mountains rise the width of a fingernail. A new sliver of ocean floor is born in the darkness of the deep dot. It's tempting to believe that the world is stable, that what you walk on is fixed. Only your mind wanders. But the truth is more beautiful than that. You are a creature born of movement, and you are held by movement. Do not imagine, if you will, a baby rocked to sleep. The motion is gentle, barely there, and yet it soothes, it settles, set. You are safe. The earth beneath your dreams rocks you too, not with speed, but with certainty, not with chaos, but with rhythm. Plate tectonics is not violence. It is poetry written in stone. Continents separate and meet again like old friends drifting apart, only to find one another when the time is right. Mountains don't erupt from the earth's surface, They emerge slowly over millions of years, as though reaching toward something they can't yet name. Even faults, with their tension and breaks, are not fractures of failure, They are how the earth breathes, and you, wrapped in a blanket, listening to the hush of your own breath. You're part of this breath. You're part of this rhythm. You are not above the earth. You are not separate from it. You are riding its surface like a note carried on a wave. Let your breath follow the mantle's flow now. Slow, viscous, unhurried. Let your thoughts soften, like magma cooling into new land. Let your worries crumble, like old crust pulled into the mantle and melted into silence. The earth beneath you recycles itself with dignity. It does not rush. It does not cling. It becomes. What if your thoughts could do the same? What if your hardest days, your pressure, your collisions were not failures, but tectonic events? What if each tremble of uncertainty was just the prelude to a new terrain? You are always changing, even when you feel still. Just like the planet beneath you, your cells replace themselves, your thoughts evolve, your bones shift ever so slightly. You are not who you were yesterday. You will not be the same tomorrow. This is not chaos. This is natural. This is plate tectonics of the soul. Now breathe. Let the weight of your body sink into the mattress. Feel gravity, the invisible thread that ties you to the earth's core. You are connected to stone, to heat, to the deepest rhythms of geology and time. Think of the minerals beneath your feet: quartz, feldspar, mica, ancient crystals born in heat, cooled in silence, now buried beneath cities and forests. They don't move quickly, they endure, and in their endurance, they carry stories. They remember collisions, they remember pressure, they remember the making of continents, and they hold you up quietly as you sleep. There's something deeply comforting in knowing this, that you can let go for a night and the world will still turn. The plates will still drift, the mantle will still flow, and the crust will hold you, not like a slab, but like a memory, because Earth is not just rock. It is rhythm, it is warmth, it is patience, and you are welcome here as you float through the gentle current of sleep. Imagine what lies below, an ocean trench where two plates meet and fold like ribbons, a magma chamber slowly filling, like a cup left under rain, continent drifting between giants, a rift where a future ocean might someday widen. These are not things you can see, but they are real as breath, as real as dreams. And while you rest, you are traveling with them across time, across shape, across stories told not in words, but in granite and gneiss. Perhaps in the morning, nothing will feel different. The street outside your window will look the same. A key will touch the floor, just as they did yesterday. But something beneath will have shifted, a fraction of a millimeter, perhaps. But even that shift matters, because Earth never sleeps, and you are dreaming with it. Tomorrow, the plates will still move. The mantle will still hum, okay? And somewhere deep below, a new story will begin. But for now, you rest. Let the earth carry you, not like a platform, but like a wave. Not like a bed, but like a breath. Let it remind you that movement is natural, that stillness can live inside motion, that transformation is always happening, quietly, patiently, beneath your dreams. And as you slip further into sleep, a thought floats gently toward you, soft as ash, warm as stone. What might you become if you moved as the earth does? Asterisk, good night, night.